So I think that people have had actually more time than I should have allowed to have a good look at this. So what have we come up with? I'll hand over to you, Brent. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to help, we've now come up with 4 options for you to have a think about. Option number 1 is what was in the original staff report, and that's what you see there under 1.4, without those words crossed out.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's with the words under the word or further down. Can you see that?
Yes.
So that was the original recommendation in the officer's report. That's option 1. Option 2 is the tinkering with that we started the presentation of this report with, and that's with the words in yellow, that the relocation be to a publicly accessible site.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the preference of the heritage experts. So that's option 2. Now, then it gets a little bit complicated. Option 3 is with 1.4, as you see up there, with the words struck out and the additional parts 2, 3 and 4 in bold.
Oh, yeah.
So just let me take you through that. That would mean that the council supports the removal of the memorial being a controlled activity, only if it's been certified as not being reasonably practically protected in its current location, and it's moved with minimal deconstruction at the same time to a temporary site to which the public have access, and unless prevented by there being a new building in its way, it's relocated then back to its original site within a specified time frame. And we'll work out with the Chief Executive what that time frame is. That's a matter of detail for us to put in the written reply. And if the relocation to the original site is prevented by there being a new building in the way, it's then relocated to a site to which the public have access. That's option 3. Now there's an option 4 that Brendan and Amanda were just describing to me, which is rather than those words publicly accessible site at the end of option 3, it says to a location, to a publicly accessible site that is compatible with the heritage value of the monument. And I think that is obviously a useful addition. Now, that does create problems for drafting, technical legal problems, but I'm sure we can deal with those. We'll worry about that in the detail of the written comments. So is that reasonably clear, the 4 options that are now on the board in front of you?
Not necessarily. So that last option is an amendment to 2, so that it reads, at the time of removal, it is located to a publicly accessible site that is compatible with its heritage values.
Yes.
Yeah. No, well, hang on. Sorry, but wouldn't that apply to 2 as well?
It would apply to both 4, and it would apply to 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
In which case, that could be much closer to the original resolution than just the words publicly accessible site.
Yeah.
Is it a question? Yep, Melanie?
So what would be the wording that we would have if we were to say that it could be temporarily removed for the purposes of reinstating the cathedral without any auxiliary buildings and then putting it back in exactly the same place?
Sorry, can you ask that again?
What would be the wording that we would have if it was that we would support temporarily moving the war memorial to a publicly accessible site with compatible heritage values, and then expecting it to go back to its original site?
It's there.
That is what we've got.
But it says unless prevented by a new building, and I'm not putting that. Well, I wouldn't support that wording.
What if there is one there?
Well, I don't want one.
Well, if there's not one there, it's a controlled activity to temporarily take it away and then put it back. That's what that's saying. Yeah.
What you're asking is, can we prevent them building a building?
Yeah.
Right.
No.
No. Tim.
With regards to the statement of prevented by a new building, one could almost assume that Christchurch Reinstatement Limited didn't want this cenotaph there full stop. So if they've got, so we're assuming, are we, that they've got plans for that site. So could we not find out if they do or not? Because that's a different discussion, because we can talk about all we want about heritage, about going and moving it, etc. But it is a citizens' war memorial, so wouldn't that be something better than that with regards to going out to consult? So if they are going to put a new building there, and we are going and we move it, that's a very different discussion to what we're having here. Now, if it is going to be moved, the discussion should be with the people of Christchurch, shouldn't it? Not us.
With respect, I think we're getting into the wrong discussion, because the discussion here is about what does the council want its written comment to be on a regulation that central government is proposing to make that would streamline resource consent processes. So the question for us isn't what exactly is the cathedral going to look like. That's not an issue that you're dealing with. The issue you're dealing with is what sort of regulation does this council support central government making? Now, that's why in the presentation of this report I started out by describing the purpose of the Reinstatement Act, which is fully supported by the council. The council supports there being a streamlined process for resource consent applications for cathedral reinstatement. What you're trying to work out is where you want the council's comments to land on the balance between facilitating reinstatement and having assurance of protection of amenity and heritage values. So what type of resource consent application do you think should go through the streamlined process? That's where this discussion lands, not detail of cathedral design. We don't know. That's not in front of us.
I think that's the crux of the problem here. I'm looking at it totally different to yourself, because I'm sitting here looking, and yes, we do want this to happen. We do want the reinstatement of the cathedral. We want that to happen as economically, because we've thrown $10 million at it with ratepayers' money. So we've got to be careful with that. We've got to be responsible. We also want it to be reinstated very quickly because it is a symbol, not just an Anglican church, but as a symbol of Christchurch and a lot of things. But the end result is the tree going to survive? Is the cenotaph going to be somewhere? That, I believe, is what the people will really want to know. And us talking about, heritage values, if it could go here or here, it should go there if it's moved. But the question is it ever going to, is it there a want by the owner of the land to put it back? If not, then let's be honest about it and talk about that. And if it is, then there's no discussion here. It's about time frames of movement. That's really what it is. That's for me what it is.
And from the legal and regulatory point of view, which is where I'm giving my recommendation to you from, it's about what sort of framework does this council support central government setting up? Does this council support central government setting up a framework that enables removal of the memorial on the basis of option 1, 2, 3 or 4? Simple as that. And in making that decision, there is a gap in our knowledge. We don't know what the plans are. And that gap isn't going to be filled and there's no requirement for central government to fill that gap for us. We're simply being asked to comment on a regulation.
Can I hazard a guess? Because I want to truncate this. I mean, I think you've done a brilliant job over a short break to try and capture how some councillors are feeling. The fundamental underlying issue is that everyone assumed until last year that we owned the memorial and that we were under an obligation to move it ourselves. And the Cathedral, the church property trustees believed that all they had to do was to ask us to move it and that we were legally obliged to do so. We found out that was not true last year. And ever since that time, well, actually it might have been even the year before, might have been 2018, but ever since then there's been toing and froing and consideration being given to a range of issues about what is best under the circumstances. And I suspect what really underpins all of this is that the CPT would like to have this memorial placed on public land, and they would like to gift it to the city. And I know that the city, generally speaking, would like to accept that gift, but we can't accept the gift on their land under the circumstances. And the difficulty is that we're now having this discussion in the context of a legal technical discussion around an amendment to the district plan as to the level of control on a controlled activity. And it is not the right time or place to have the bigger conversation. So what I want to do is to be able to bring us back to the actual technical issue, and we can take the rest of it offline. We can express to the reinstatement company our concerns, we can express to the ministers our concerns, but she is now in a legal technical process, so she will not pull out of the process in order to have a conversation with us. She can't. So the company have informed council staff about this. Our DPMC have talked to council staff about this. It was late to us, and it is simply an oversight, and I don't want to hold things up any further because of that. What I want to do is I want to get as best possible an outcome as we can. And I actually thought that when we had a quick discussion the other day, that it would have been preferable to go with the proposal that was put forward. If people want to take out the economic viability, well, then you can certainly expect the Cathedral to come back and ask for running costs for the Cathedral. The operational expenditure, I think, will be dependent on whether they can get that visitor centre actually into a space where it can produce viability. But I don't know, because I'm not aware of the plans in that regard. If the memorial could technically come forward onto our land, it would solve a lot of problems. But I understand that not all councillors are in agreement in that regard. So I just would rather that we took a thing. So I'm going to move the original recommendation and see whether I've got a seconder for that, Sam McDonald. And I'm assuming that there will be people that will want to amend the recommendation. So did you want to amend it?
No, I still have questions.
Okay, well, fire away. Question.
Thank you. And actually, I agree with some of Tim's concern, but mine's slightly different, because obviously this order in council doesn't expire to 2032, and I'm assuming it's for the whole reinstatement process. So does that give them the ability to do new buildings through the streamlined process and basically get that done under the radar?
Yes.
It's in their legislation, isn't it?
Yeah, it's because of the scope of the definition of reinstatement that's in the Reinstatement Act.
I guess...
and what's proposed in the Order in Council is to carry that through, and that's one of the staff recommendations that we haven't been debating, and that's that the range of activity, the scope of activity that goes through the streamlined process of reinstatement be narrowed a little bit.
I guess I'm concerned because I am very concerned about the natural heritage potential loss there and also the war memorial, but we potentially could create a process that will allow them to do new buildings that will actually be able to be done, get through the RMA without any public notification, and probably squeeze out actually some really important features of our city.
Well, that's in the legislation itself that the council
They've already
supported
got
in
the power to do
2017.
That's the point. Yep. So I've got an amendment. So you want to amend? Sorry, I've got a resolution. You want to amend it?
No, I've got a question about what you've moved, just because I can't see it on the screen at the moment. Is what you've moved the original recommendation as was in the paper?
Yeah.
So relating to removal to another location in Cathedral Square, or to another publicly accessible site?
Well, I was looking for a seconder for it, but so I got a seconder for the original resolution.
Yeah, it's just a question about the wording
Yeah.
of what's been moved and seconded.
Yeah, the original recommendation.
So a location in the square.
A location in the square.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay. Because then it's moved once. It's not moved more than once, which is a risk to the... Well, the thing is that we would have to consult on it anyway, but my view is that to bring it onto council land actually solves a big underlying problem, which is the CPT own the land underneath the memorial, technically making them the owner of the memorial. And that cannot be allowed to continue, because if it continues, we will continue to have this debate forever. So that's, I mean, I just want to bring it to a head. I want us to have something to debate. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm trying to be helpful and facilitative of a good outcome, but it's hard. Melanie.
If this fails, I'll support the other versions I've had showing.
So you foreshadowed the other motion. Yep. Okay.
Next was your wording.
With the economic viability moved in the other 3 points.
So do I have a seconder for the shadow, right, the alternative resolution? Right, okay. So that's foreshadowed. Melanie Coker and Pauline Cotter. Okay. So so we'll open it up for debate. Tim?
You know, I'm going to be voting against this, and it's really simple. I think that if the question is that it will not go back there because of a number of reasons, then we should open that up and ask the citizens where it should go. Not about going back into somewhere else in the square, but where it should be, because it is a citizens' memorial. Before the earthquake, when you went there were New Zealanders, there were old family New Zealanders, there were creeds and colours. It wasn't an Anglican cathedral, it was a symbol, as the cenotaph is. It is a citizens' memorial, and I think that's where it should be. Going around and saying, oh, we've got a framework, but you've got to have an end game to a framework, and I think that's the bit that's missing. There's no connection. Is there going to be a new building there? If there is, then all of this is irrelevant. We should be talking about where the best place for the citizens are. And I totally respect the heritage side of it, but there's nothing worse than having plans for a modern, new Cathedral Square and plonking something in the middle. It's just, there's this, a real couple of gaps here, but the number one thing for me is we should be talking honestly and then coming out to the citizens, and I think that's missing.
Sam, Pauline?
I can be really brief. I think probably the last hour and a half is typified why the cathedral hasn't been built already. So I just strongly urge people to actually support this and get on with it.
Pauline?
Yeah, I just think we're in a rock and a hard place here. We need to do something, and this has come to us. I believe I heard the Mayor say the other day, it's a courtesy, it's not an obligation. That
I was wrong. I often am. Sorry, I am going to interject. I am going to interject.
Yeah.
This is a legal process we're in now.
Okay, well, it's come to us for basically a comment on whether we support it being a controlled activity or not. And it's a horrible situation. The whole thing centres around, I think, really the meaning of that, the definition of that word reinstatement. It actually allows them to do all these things. I never envisaged the cathedral was going to have an extended building put on the side of it, or it could be two, I don't know. I still don't know anything about it, what it looks like. I don't support that at all, and I don't think the people of Christchurch would support that, and nor do I support the removal of the trees in any way, or the moving of the memorial. It's just this is quite a surprise, and I feel once again we're in between a rock and a hard place. So I'm just hoping that the minister can get the feeling of what we're representing, the people of Christchurch, and I'm sure that the people will support our feeling on this. So we're going to have to support something here, or the outcome will be far worse. So it's either the substantive or the amendment, which I'll hopefully support the amendment here.
Melanie?
And I'm disappointed we have to even have this discussion today, because as Pauline said, in my mind, reinstatement is reinstatement. And it's all about the heritage. We're rebuilding the cathedral because we believe in its heritage, and that includes its surrounds, and I don't believe anything should be altered. So that's why I'd support, won't support this particular motion.
Anyone else? Yanni? Aaron?
Yeah, I just want to acknowledge the technical staff advice that we've received, and just to quote, the heritage values of the trees is more significant than the benefit that might accrue from extending the footprint of the cathedral in a way that requires removal of the trees. There is no evidence that the trees are in poor health, and they're likely to have a remaining life in hundreds of years. They do not pose a danger to people working on the reinstatement, and there's no evidence that there's any need to remove them in order to reinstate the cathedral in its current footprint. Due to the changes in the surrounding environment, it is unlikely that a mature tree of the size will ever be able to be established in this location again. And I think for a council that's declared a climate emergency and takes sustainability seriously, enabling healthy, mature trees of this magnitude to be fast-tracked for removal is just something I would not consider supporting at all. It does worry me that what should have been a reinstatement of the cathedral is turning into a far bigger exercise than what I certainly anticipated. And I think this whole process speaks to the fact that although we've had COVID-19, the communication between us as a funder and what's being sought just doesn't seem to be happening. So I can't support what's being proposed today. I do support actually the staff comments in terms of the expert advice, and what that shows to me quite clearly is there is simply no need to have fast-track processes for the trees or the Citizens' War Memorial. They can do what they need to do within the rest of it, but not on those two, so I won't be supporting what's being put forward.
Mayor, apologies for speaking
sorry,
up.
we can't enter into the debate now. So the debate started.
There has been a misunderstanding of the council of the recommendation in the staff report.
Well, if people were generally comfortable with allowing the standing orders, okay. Thank you, Brent.
Yeah, thank you. I didn't want there to be any misunderstanding about the resolution. So the passage you've just read from the staff report is in support of the resolution up there about the trees. There's not a conflict between the two. So the city arborist who expressed the views you just read out supports the resolution that's up there for the trees, because it means that the streamlined process is available only if the removal of the trees is necessary for the reinstatement of the cathedral and its current
existing footprint.
Yeah. Apologies for speaking.
Yeah, no. It was very good, because sometimes councillors do misunderstand the technical information they've been given. So thank you very much. Aaron.
Yeah, I just want to say a couple of things on this. Firstly, I actually commend the Minister for trying to speed the process up and get things going. There are tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of people in the city that just want it to get moving. At the cost of what is always the question, but that is life. And if you look at the history of the cathedral, the surrounds of the cathedral have changed many, many times, and there have been a lot of changes in the square over time. This process may mean there's another one, and so it will be. But this is the heart of our city. There will always be changes around that heart, and I'd just like to say, when it comes to controlled activities, what got us here, wouldn't it be great if earthquakes were a controlled activity?
Anyone else? Sarah?
Thank you. And I know there's been an enormous amount of work in a very short time on this, and I'd like to acknowledge that. But I'm firmly of the view that we shouldn't be destroying such significant natural heritage or other built heritage to facilitate the reinstatement of another piece of heritage. It's not necessary to remove either. They can be worked around, and I'm not prepared to allow their removal just for the sake of expediency. I can see that having the council feedback may mitigate the current proposal, which I completely disagree with, and that without our mitigation the outcome could be worse. And I acknowledge Brent's explanation, but disagree that the reinstatement would be something worth destroying that natural heritage for at all to start with. So I'm struggling to support this at all.
Anyone else? I'll just close off my own resolution. Look, I would actually like councillors to support this. I know that it sounds like it isn't going to pass, but I think that's such a shame, because what the Minister's asked for us, and we have to reply by the 22nd of June. We don't get to extend the time. That's why we have to make the decision today. You know, it is a genuine oversight. You know, staff have been talking to staff, officials have been talking to officials about this. It hasn't come up to council before now because we didn't have the formal documentation. There were assumptions made that information had been passed on and it hadn't been. So, you know, I mean, people make mistakes. This is a difficult, challenging time. We've had a lockdown period. We have an opportunity to put forward what I think is, you know, it's a finely balanced thing. And the fine balance sits there amongst the trees. In the trees, it says, may require, if necessary, for the cathedral's reinstatement, removing up to the 3 London plane trees on site, which are protected by the plan. So, you know, what we're saying is that let's make sure that that applies only to the reinstatement of the cathedral. It's not for building new buildings or anything like that. So you know, from the tree point of view, it's adding protections in, and as we've heard, the city arborist supports us taking this approach. In terms of the Citizens' War Memorial, I think it goes back to the fact that we don't own it and we must. You know, we have to own it, because if we don't own it, then the decision that it could be put away in boxes for years and years and years, and actually no obligation to bring it out and put it anywhere, that's too hard for me to bear. And if the price that we pay is to find a suitable site on council-owned land in the square, because I'll tell you who decided where it was going to be, had nothing to do with the City Council, had nothing to do with the RSA. The RSA opposed any money being spent on a memorial, and the Christchurch City Council completely opposed it going into Cathedral Square. And George Gould, who wanted the Citizens' War Memorial, who wanted it desperately, only wanted it for the square. And he went and fought for it to get into the square, the one place where there was land available, and it was next to the cathedral. And that's why he changed the design. That's why the sword is bent. We all understand about ploughshares and swords and various other quotes from the Bible that I'm not very good at. And we also understand why there's a cross at the top. It is the most significant war memorial in the country, you know, and it belongs to our city, and it was gifted to us by our citizens, and we have no right to overturn that decision. So there's my bit. So I will put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Ugh, that didn't work. Those opposed say no. That's lost. Foreshadowed motion. It's been moved and seconded. For the second one?
For what you just moved. The show of hands who supported it.
Oh, okay, we'll have a record of who voted for the motion.
6, 7, 8.
What? Oh, can you just write down the people that... Oh, okay. Yeah, all right. Just call out the names. Sorry.
Councillor Ewan? Oh, yes. Councillor McClellan? No. Councillor McDonald? Yes. Councillor Davidson? No. Councillor Galloway? Yes. Councillor Scandrick? No. Councillor Chu? Yes. Councillor Coker? No. Councillor Cotter? No. Councillor Chen? No. Mayor?
Yes.
Councillor Templeton? No. Councillor Major? No. Councillor Turner?
No.
Councillor Johansson?
No.
Councillor Daniels?
Aye.
Councillor Goff?
Yes.
It's lost 8 votes. 8 votes yes, 9 votes against.
Right. Oh, actually, that was better than I thought.
That was only yeses. All those against?
No, they went through everyone. Oh. Yeah. Sorry, it was weird. Anyway, we'll do exactly the same for the foreshadowed motion.
Yes.
Yep.
Let me just make sure it makes sense.
No, you're all going to vote
I need to go to the bathroom?
Unseen.
So,
does not support it unless, because that sort of frames it in a, it says, you know, 1.4 supports the removal,
supporting the controlled activity status.
Yeah, but being a controlled activity, but doesn't support the removal of it being a controlled activity unless. That sort of frames it in that whole, we're against it happening.
Only supports the
unless,
removal.
Yeah.
Only supports the removal of the controlled activity if. Yeah, that's easier.
Yeah.
Clear.
Although if we do it the other way, it's sort of, it does.
It's a condition of the controlled activity.
Yeah.
The same with 1.5 as well.
Or just put it only at the beginning instead, just to add the only. Just makes it slightly clearer that we're, you know, not happy.
Brent, does that make legal technical sense? It's just adding in the words only at the beginning of 1.4 and 1.5.
Oh, that's fine.
Good.
Yeah.
I don't know whether to vote for this.
See that or there's no feedback.
Eh?
Yeah. It's logical.
Yeah.
Could you put 2 separately? I don't agree with the temporary move there.
Sorry.
We don't want it to be moved.
We'll just do a roll call again.
Yeah.
Will we? Or are people not going to bother voting against it? Yeah, okay. We'll do a roll
Can we just
call.
see- can we just check
can
on
you,
them? Yeah.
excuse me, can you please, I know that some people want to vote against some of them. If you want, or for some of them, or not against others, I don't know. I don't really care at this point. So what I want you to do is to, if you are opposed or if there is something like 1.42, you want to have a different vote recorded, can you just say that when you when it's polled?
Can I just check a process question? What's if this particular one fails, does that mean that we have no feedback at all, or is there another foreshadowed motion from someone?
No, there's no feedback, so that's the easiest thing.
Yeah, so there'll be no feedback.
Yeah,
So this has got to pass.
even better.
Which
Yeah,
would leave it all
that's a
open
good reason
slather.
to vote against it. Yeah. Right. Okay. Do you want to? I'll hand over.
This has to pass then.
Councillor Galloway?
This has to pass then. Otherwise there's no feedback.
Because I want to get things going.
Councillor Johansson?
Sorry, do you want us to individually identify which one?
Yeah.
No.
Now or at the end?
If you are, you're generally accepting this. If you're saying no to any of them, can you highlight them?
Right, okay. So support for 1.1?
No. Just tell us the ones you're opposed to.
Oh, okay. So in terms of the amendment, just 2, opposed to 2?
1.42 bracket 2
Yeah, and 1.1.
and 1.1.
Well, moving the Citizens' War Memorial.
1.1.
I only support half of it, but there's no...
1.1.
That's why I was confused about the amendments.
So you're voting against supporting there being an order in council that's streamlined?
No, that's fine. Just put it in support. That's
Okay.
fine. But I'm just... That's the problem with these amendments, not... Yeah,
Oh.
being clear, but whatever.
That's right.
Just 2, right?
I have no idea what he just said.
So I support the order in council for the reinstatement of the cathedral, not for moving the war memorial. But I don't know how we record that in all these amendments.
But it's not what this report is
Then
about.
vote.
1.4 is pretty
So-
much trying to put it
But it's not what the report's about, because it's not on the...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just vote against
That's fine.
1.1
That's
and
right,
just
I'll-
forget the rest of it.
No, it's fine. Yeah, so no to 1.1 and no to 2. Thanks, and support the others. Cheers.
Okay. All right.
1.42.
All right. Carry on.
Councillor Turner?
Yes.
Councillor McClellan?
Yes.
Councillor Major?
Yeah.
Councillor Goff?
No.
Councillor McDonald?
No.
Councillor Kieran?
No.
Councillor Potter?
Yes, but against 1.42.
Councillor Davidson? Councillor Scandrett?
No.
Councillor Chu? Councillor Coker? Yes. Councillor Templeton?
No.
Councillor Daniels?
Carl, no.
Councillor Chen?
Yes.
The Mayor?
No.
Here we go.
It's the same but in reverse.
Okay. 8 for yes and 9 for no.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Good to have.
Right. There's no response to the minister. Thank you for your. Thank you, and I do apologise to council staff, but and I'm thankful that you've put so much effort and time into this, and I do apologise that we haven't been able to reach a conclusion. But that is the nature of the time frame that we've worked under. So thank you for everything. Cheers. Right. It is a public consultation. I'm going to write my own submission.
Yeah. We are still able to put forward another motion because we haven't moved into the next part of the meeting. I mean, whether it was worth... No, actually, we're able to...
We're
put
moving
forward
on
a-
to the next